Thanks for joining us again as we continue our study with James Luce and the Men's Ministry at Glenville Church. Feel free to join us as well on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. We'd love to have you. If you'd like to check out some other teachings here on the YouTube channel for Glenville Teachings, we have Brenda Lane, Bruce Thomas, and several other teachers. So look for some new teachings coming your way and subscribe to our channel. May the Lord bless you and keep you as you continue to grow in His grace.
Let's turn to Jonah. This will be interesting. Yeah, exactly. Did you see me turning and finding it?
Yeah, it is. Let's turn to Let Me Find It First.
That's exactly what I did.
Let Me Find It First. The book of Let Me Find It First, chapter, wait a minute. Verse, bear with me.
And Rick, now that he's back, will be reading first.
Hey, I'm a reading fool.
Reading fool. We're going to Jonah. All right, so stuff we've been studying recently, right? So I'm studying this week, and we were traveling with Zoe in the car, and we had the Newsboys channel on, and the Newsboys song "In the Belly of a Whale" came on, and it was just having to fit with my study completely. And then it was one of those, we only read this book when we're kids and we remember, hey, the story of Jonah, and we don't actually listen to it for what we've been talking about recently, which is exactly what we've been talking about recently with this class. And so I read back through Jonah and went, yeah, this will be a good one to read back through and actually read it as though I'm Jonah instead of doing what everybody does. Oh, it's a cute story where someone gets swallowed by a fish. All right. Go ahead and read there Jonah 1 for me, Rick.
I'm still, confused. Was it a fish or was it a whale?
I know.
It can't be both.
I'm pretty sure it says a fish in the book, but
I'm pretty sure they couldn't tell the difference.
I don't know. And when Pinocchio was swallowed by the whale, was Jonah in there?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
It was a different whale.
There's a lot of rogue whales swallowing people. I'm just saying, you gotta watch out. From 1?
Yep.
The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord.
Okay. Why does he have to flee?
I don't know, but Tarshish sounds like Sean Connery would say Tarsus.
It's true. It does sound like that.
Tarshish.
Seriously. Why would he go somewhere else?
Why would he go somewhere else?
Yeah. Why wouldn't he just sit where he was? Is it like God only lives in his house and is...
Yeah, I was going to say, it's
I've been discovered.
kind of a weird thought that you could actually
Get away from God.
get away.
Yeah. I mean, and I was trying to, I don't think this is a...
And then you have to wonder if when he does that, God's like...
Yeah, no, I don't wonder at all. I believe that's exactly what God does.
It's like you're an ant on this table, and you're like, ant, I need you to do this. And the ant's like, la, 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 la. And you're like...
That's exactly where I'm going.
You're like...
That's what you're going to do.
In all the dramatized versions of this, and I particularly...
Does that include the VeggieTales one?
Yeah,
Okay.
VeggieTales
All right.
is my personal favorite. But, they put like a little bit of story behind it, but I just really like how it's worded here. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. And like...
I'm seriously, I'm not a parable guy. I don't believe this is a parable, right? There's some Christians out there that say this is just flat parable. There's nothing real in this. This is not a true story at all.
Really?
Go ahead.
And
I've never once thought that.
We might actually go through this book today, but it's always said that Jonah's a prophet, but it doesn't
Say anything about it.
here.
Yeah.
you know, perhaps he was just terrified that God spoke to him.
Right.
And left.
It might have been that moment.
It's like, ah!
Is prophet just an umbrella word meaning anybody that God speaks to, like, directly? I mean, I don't know, maybe that's why.
Well, I mean, it's like, especially the VeggieTales is my favorite, you know, but because it's a children's movie, but...
And is that why atheism is referred to as a non-profit organization?
Oh!
Wow. He's on a roll today. I like how Doug, does what he does, quietly sits there and go.
We're given the impression that Jonah was a respected, prophet, that, he was,
He was known.
He was in this city, and just everyone was all yeah, Jonah's our guy, and we listen to whatever he says because he's got the word of God here. But and it's been a while since I've read this, but I don't think it actually says that anywhere in the book that he was a known and respected prophet of God.
Yep. Nope.
It just says God spoke to him and told him to do this thing, and then he ran away.
Yep. Yeah. I'll do a little more study on how it defines him as a prophet. But, yeah, and we are going to read through the whole thing today, so we'll point it out, because it's a really short book.
Yes, it's I've got
4
a page and a half here.
Yeah, and it's...
In 2 Kings, it says that Jonah was a prophet.
Okay, so that's where it names him as a prophet. But
Prophet to the king of Israel. Or Judah.
so...
No, it's the same guy. Doesn't say that it's the same guy.
Jonah,
Jonah, the guy who got swallowed by the fish, remember that guy? Yeah.
That's what the cross is?
So it says Jonah the son of Amittai, the prophet.
Okay.
Sweet.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are a lot of people with the same names.
Yeah. How many Johns do you know?
Yeah, there's quite a few.
There's a few in the book.
No, I was being serious. And there's actually several...
Mary Magdalene knew quite a few.
Oh!
Wow. Wow.
Okay, I think we can call it a day.
There's a hook that comes out.
Cut it out.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Well, it's like Goliath. Goliath had several brothers. They were named Goliath. It's like the George Foreman joke.
Oh, yeah.
But it's,
I actually didn't know that.
yeah.
That's why I come here.
All right, good. I really wanted to look at this book, and you said it nicely that you'd never thought of it as a parable, but I've had many people say, well, that's just a parable.
Well, usually parables are told by people about other people.
Right, and told in a very parable kind of way. Like, I'm going to tell you a story now about something that didn't really happen.
And usually they're nameless, random people.
Right.
All the time there was a man.
Right. So if I put myself in these shoes, there's one example. Even if he is a prophet of God, and he hasn't really been spoke to by God, specifically hear the voice in his head, this might have been the first time he heard it in his head. And like what you said, what about other things? What else do we do when God tells us to do something? I mean, is it we actually think we're going to run away from God, or is it, you know what, God, I'm going to go over here instead. I'm going to go do this when God calls you to do it. Because to me, that happens often. When God says, hey, no, you're going to do this. I'm like, no, I really don't want to do that. I'm not going to. So I'm going to go somewhere else. And when I'm in somewhere else, there's no way I can possibly do that thing that you told me to do.
Yeah, I got this thing over here at the place, I'm sorry.
And the fact that he went the farthest from where he was going, if you look on a map, like he goes the absolute opposite direction as far as he could go. And the Newsboy song, it says, he said go north, I went south, whatever. And it's just a funny reference to the reality of we are like the ant on the table. And it's so much bigger than that. We're the ant on the table that God could just make go the other way. Like, not with his hand, just go, you know what, you're a zombie now, go that way. He has control over us. I mean, he made Nicodemus go crazy. He made, Nebuchadnezzar go crazy. He made, all sorts of people do things that they didn't want to do. It's not that hard. So he leaves it up to us again. All right, keep reading there, Rick.
Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. and they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish." Then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they asked him, "Tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you?"
Okay, let's pause there. Okay. Have any of you ever seen like The Perfect Storm or any of those shows? You know, the movies about boats being capsized and Coast Guard saving people. Who is Jonah? Is he a real person? If he's a real person, who is he? Like, let's put a face to him. People that we know that are like, I don't care. He goes downstairs. They're literally chucking the furniture off the top deck, and he's like, I'm gonna go.
Take it, Dad.
He's kind of manic depressive, you know.
I like how God knows what the bus.
The joke of him going, right, is totally true, especially with them casting lots. You know, they get out dice and are throwing lots to find who, you know, there's nothing left to do, right? They've done everything they can do to try to save themselves from this death. So they get dice out and go, who do we throw overboard next?
And so God literally, I'm sure he stacked the deck.
He did.
Or you just imagine Jonah watch them cast lots and it comes up on him. He's like, really?
The thing about that story that gets me the most is that there's a storm, and everybody just automatically assumes that it's the storm is the fault of one of these humans on this boat.
Yeah, I mean, it's ancient, you know, storms happen because somebody's done something wrong times.
This time they were correct.
They were. You know, in this case, it's 100% accurate.
Maybe they do that every time a storm comes up. They just don't write a book about it because they didn't have to throw anyone overboard.
Yeah, and
Maybe they threw everyone overboard.
it's not too descriptive. It just says, but the Lord sent out a great wind on the sea, and there was a mighty tempest. It might have been a crystal clear day, too. Like, with no chance of wind, that they could see the horizons to the right, and all of a sudden, storm! You know?
That happens.
It does. Squalls, yeah.
I've been in one of those in a boat.
Yeah.
Pretty terrifying.
Who'd you throw overboard?
It was almost me.
It was almost. Yeah. Squalls are terrifying exactly for that reason. They just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, that, like, over the course of less than a minute, the sky is black.
Yeah. And if you got the sails in the wrong place, if you're under sail power versus motor power, holy cow, you can be dead in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we were in sailboats. Like, I was in a sailing camp.
Oh, man.
We just ran all the boats ashore and pulled down the masts so that they would.
Okay, and I like this description that they say to him. Please tell us, for whose cause is this trouble upon you? What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you?
Can we get out the list of questions to ask potential people we're going to throw overboard?
All right, keep reading here, Rick.
He answered, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." This terrified them, and they asked, "What have you done?" They knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. The sea was getting rougher and rougher, so they asked him, "What should we do to make the sea calm down for us?" "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," he replied, "and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you." Instead, the men did their best to row back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried out to the Lord, "Please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, Lord, have done as you pleased." Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. At this the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him.
Okay. There's so much good stuff there. I'm Jonah. I've already told you that I'm running away from God, because it says later that he's already told them that. I'm Hebrew. I worship God, the big God, and he made all this. He just gave witness to these people. Even in the midst of all of his other stuff, he still answered them honestly and truthfully and God-driven wise. Running as fast as he can the other direction, he still says to them, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, throw me overboard. Because he knows, from prophecy, I guess, that God is going to stop it as soon as you throw me overboard. I love the reaction of the sailors. No. Okay.
So that's all we got to do to save your life.
Save our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But melancholy-wise, look at this guy. These are good people, good, honest fisher folk, transportation guys. And they're like, we're not just chucking you overboard. Even after they were told, they cast lots to chuck somebody overboard. They're like, no, we're going to try to row towards shore as fast as we can.
They're all like, we were hoping it would be that guy over there.
That might be the case, too.
Mark.
Right.
I really don't like that guy.
And it might be that they're afraid of God. That they just choose not to throw him overboard, even though he said so. Because if it is your God and you are the one that's causing all this problem, does your God really want us to chuck this guy over the rail? Okay, so let's try to be Jonah. I'm going that way. And then some guy who were sleeping in the hull. Obviously, Jonah is kind of an odd duck, right? Already?
I like that, they knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. So, what you doing? I'm running away from God.
Yeah.
I'm going to go take a nap. Peace. Okay. That guy. What about you? Oh, I'm going to go visit my grandma.
Well, if we make him into a real person, is he a guy that's kind of like got melancholia and just kind of got his head down and he's acting like he's depressed? Is he wildly crazy? And kind of has, that crazy look in his eye. I mean, who is this guy?
Or could just be stressed.
Seriously. Could this be stressed?
The struggle is real.
The struggle is real. I mean, if we're looking at this guy and know him, he's a real guy. You know what, God, I'm not doing that. If we already know that he is already a prophet, which we found out from Anthony for sure, that, he said he was a prophet of God.
Prophet Jonah, chapter 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah.
So,
that was weird.
Yeah, that was weird. We know that he was, already a guy from God. Did he just crack? Literally? Yeah, I'm not doing that. There's no way I'm going to Crazy Bill. And I'm going to go take a nap now. Seriously, that's what people do under heavy stress when they're a little depressed, right? They want to sleep all day. They don't want to do what somebody tells them to do. They don't want to get up and go to work. Let's put them into a practical thing. And then these guys are over here, the storm's up, and he's like, I'm just going to lay down. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to sleep in the middle of the storm. Expletive this. I don't care. And then somebody wakes you up. Hey, we rolled dice and it says you're the guy. Who are you? What is this about?
I don't know that it says anywhere in the Bible other than where it says because its wickedness has come before me, or just because I'm hearkening back to VeggieTales. But it seems to me that he was probably a normal guy who was just really afraid of going to Nineveh.
How bad the city was.
Yeah, they slap people with fishes there.
Which is not actually the case. But VeggieTales does make that.
But, maybe he actually feared for his life, and he's like, I'll do
anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who goes to sleep in the middle of a storm? Who thinks they can run away from God? We all do. That's the reality of this story, is God wants me to do something and I'm not going to do it. No. I'm not talking to that guy. Or being called to do something and we're not going to do it. Or being called to something and God not really talking to us about it and hoping we have to figure it out for ourselves, letting us figure it out. Those are all realities. And what do? I'm going to go watch Doctor Who. Right?
For 10 hours.
For 10 hours.
All right, this is a little too close to home.
That's kind of the point of the class. Is I want to personify what really is happening here.
Yeah, Nineveh's a city of dogs.
If somebody walked up to you today and you were in the worst place in the world and said, "Who are you? Where are you from? And what are you all about?" Are you going to say, "I'm a Christian, I'm from such and such"? That's kind of the point, is that he still says it. Right? He still does his job. Guy's a little wacko, right? He's pretty crazy. But he, when asked, says it flatly, and then when they say, "What should we do?" Throw me overboard. I don't think I'd be that guy. Am I supposed to want to be that guy? I hope not. But I'm supposed to be the guy that honestly speaks to what the truth is. And that's what he does, to the point of, we're going to throw you overboard. And I like how one of the things about the idea that it is a parable that makes it so that it's so true to me that it's not a parable is if it was a parable, they just would have chucked him overboard. Why would they have argued it and tried to row to shore? The trying to row to shore makes it so that it's like, no, we're not going to do that. I don't want to have 8 witnesses see the fact that I'm John's transport service across the water, and I'm going to just chuck my guys overboard whenever it rains.
But then, okay. See, now I was going to ask a question, but then I was like, I don't know. Well, because I was going to ask, were they really good people, or did they just not want to throw him overboard because they worried that they would be punished? But then, his God, our God...
Refund? Give his family a refund. Yeah.
But then, they can't have been worried about our God, because our God was not their God, at least not at that time. So, I don't know.
And then there's laws. It's not like everybody didn't see this guy get on board your boat. You have a transport service. Boat docks to the other place. You have a ledger. One missing. There was a storm and he fell overboard. You could say that. But there's witnesses and there's people. Maybe real people don't normally want to just toss people overboard. Especially people who seem to be crazy and say, "It's me. It's my fault. Just throw me over." Especially the guy that went down to sleep while everybody's chucking stuff overboard. Right? You wake that guy up who's asleep in the storm, and he goes, "Yeah, it's me. It's my fault. I believe in this God, and you should just chuck me overboard. We should take you to the happy place." Right? All right. And then they did believe after he was chucked overboard. The number of people that came to know the Lord in this story from him not doing what he was supposed to do is great. I mean, that's one of the best parts about this story is you're going to go help us by doing this. And then guy goes, "You know what? I'm going to still use you all along the way. I'm going to show you that no matter where you go, this is your calling."
And then Jonah could be like, "I totally knew that was going to happen. That's why I didn't want to do it." And then God would be like, "Yeah, I totally knew you knew that you didn't know it was going to happen, that you would run. That's why I chose you."
All right. So, Anthony, could you read there at 17 for me?
And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, saying, "I called out to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight, yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. The waters closed in over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped about my head at the roots of the mountains. I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought me up from my life from the pit. You, O Lord my God, when my life was fainting away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you into your holy temple. Those who pay regard to vain idols forsake their hope of steadfast love. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. And the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out upon the dry land.
Okay. Everybody's done the whole thing of, hey, you're in the fish, and what's the fish like inside, and those things. 3 days.
It smells like chicken.
Yeah. Right? We don't actually even really think about 3 days when we think about it. I mean, the story goes pretty quick. That's a pretty quick. We've actually skipped the 3 days, and we've gone to the ending of the 3 days with him talking and praying and then spitting him up. But minute 1, this is terrible.
We have, when I was growing up, my mom had these, like, I guess they were painted tiles or something hanging around in the kitchen. And there was one of Jonah in the belly of the whale, and he's like all peaceful on his knees, like sitting on the back of the whale with like ripped bones around and stuff. He's all like,
That's how we do it.
That was just kind of, that's like a common image, I think. It's like,
I know, and like
no,
over here,
you're just like screaming bloody murder the whole time. You're inside a whale, yo.
Yeah, and he's got a candle in there for like somehow.
Where'd he get the candle?
Like, you can see the whale's epiglottis hanging right there.
Yeah,
like,
this dangly ball back there in the background, and it's like, no, you're just like inside an animal that has eaten you and is digesting you right now. You're not peaceful and calm and Lord, thank you so much.
it's like, whoa, that was close.
You're just kind of like gonna die.
Yeah.
In a giant animal.
Yeah.
In a moving organic prison.
And that's why the Pinocchio reference that you made earlier is so funny too, because they put a whole ship that you could live in and just hang out in the whale inside this animal. For some reason, we want to do that. I saw The Shallows 2 weeks ago. You know, the new Jaws-esque movie, and the terrifying nature of a giant shark. Hey, it was Shark Week last week. You know, the nature of being eaten by something and how horrendous and terrifying that is. I probably, first day, if I was Jonah, how long does this take? How long? What is happening? Am I going to be alive tomorrow? Was it a supernatural digestion level time period? I don't know how long it actually would take in whatever he was in. Was God letting him still be alive to point out to him, I'm going to let this take a long time? Was it no, this was horrendous, immediate day 1, you're being digested and this hurts greatly. It's horrible. And day 3, you can't believe you're still alive. I don't know. It doesn't give us anything more than that. But any and all of that above is, wow.
I don't know. It says it swallowed him, but maybe that's just a translation thing. Maybe it didn't swallow him. Maybe it just took it into his mouth.
We don't know.
I'm just saying if it took him into his mouth, it's not digesting him. It's just,
And God could stop whatever process is supposed to be happening.
Maybe I'm overthinking.
Any and all of the above. Well, frankly, it's not a good time. And it's a great time to reset to, why am I here? Did he not pray this prayer day 1? Who is this guy? Was he just laying down to die inside the fish? Was he, I'm not going to Nineveh.
I don't know.
I don't care about doing your work anymore. I ran from you, and obviously it's not going to work. And I've died in this animal.
Well, I think he had those thoughts even when he was telling all the guys to throw him overboard. He's like, I would rather die.
It's what it feels like to me. He is a guy that would rather die than do what God wanted him to do.
I don't know. Maybe that's why he slept. Maybe he's like, man, worst case scenario, they're going to have to throw me overboard. Do I want to tell them that? Maybe
I'm just going
psyching
to forget
himself
about
up.
this and just go. And I wanted to bring that into this group to say, I have a full enough life that I can pick to ignore God. Right? I can choose to try to ignore God. 100% of the time. And watch 11 hours of Doctor Who, not just 10. Right? God lets us do pretty much anything we want to do most of the time. And not just that, I don't feel called to anything extra that I haven't been doing recently. I mean, he's specifically called to go and do something in a completely different place. But he's in a place where he just doesn't care. I don't care what you want me to do. I'm going that way. I started out going that way in a violently quick way, and then it was, I'm just going to go to sleep. Just throw me overboard, everything will be fine. But 3 days is a long time to have to take to get to this ending. Right? And this is a parallel story to Christ coming out of the grave.
I was just thinking that very same thing.
Yeah, it is. But is it a parallel story because God scripted it out to be that way? Or he's showing us how long it takes us to get it at the same time? Because he was in hell inside of a fish for 3 days.
Yeah,
before he prayed this.
Jesus knew what was going on, though.
Yeah.
In his case, obviously, but...
Yeah. How long does it take us to turn our mindset around in the belly of a whale/fish? Was he so depressed that he just was like, I'm dead, there's no way I'm coming back from this? People don't come back from giant fishes, saving them. I'm not praying to my God because my God's done with me. He wanted me thrown in the water and swallowed by a whale. Or was he in there going, okay, I know if I do what I'm supposed to do, God will let me out of here. Most likely for me, I'm done. God's done with me. I ran from him. He had him throw me in the sea, and he's going to let this fish eat me and just digest me. And then eventually I said, it's been a couple of days. This really stinks. Please.
Like literally.
Yeah, really, literally, and horribly. We use this as like a kid's story, and we don't think about it as an us story of how bad we are about changing our minds towards what we should do. And not just big deal going to Nineveh things, but, if my wife and I are arguing over budgets and we're just going to circle around it for a year, God's sitting there going, oh, guys, come on. Why can you not, And there's things that happen that change us, that cause us to rethink how we evaluate what we're supposed to do. Because we can do it in and of ourselves any way that we want to do it. And God's there going, I don't want God to swallow me with a whale or a fish or whatever. I just want him to let me figure it out on my own. Right? That's what we want. This guy, thank goodness, gave us an example of somebody who doesn't let God let us figure it out on our own, so we can go, okay, we don't get it. We really don't get it. When the plant gets eaten is my favorite part. Okay, Kurt, go ahead and read there at 3.
Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Jonah began by going a day's journey into the city, proclaiming, 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. The Ninevites believed God. A fast was proclaimed, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. When Jonah's warning reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his royal robes, covered himself with a sackcloth, and sat down in the dust. This is the proclamation he issued in Nineveh. By the decree of the kings and his nobles, do not let people or animals, herds or flocks, taste anything. Do not let them eat or drink. But let people and animals be covered with sackcloth. Let everyone call urgently on God. Let them give up their evil ways and their violence. Who knows? God may yet relent and with compassion turn from his fierce anger so that we will not perish. When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he relented and did not bring on them the destruction he had threatened.
Okay. So, I've heard many people automatically put into, how did Jonah look when he came to town? Was he burned with acid scars? Was he like just kind of stumbling in, crazy man? Did somebody see him get spit up on the beach?
No, because he didn't get spit up on Nineveh.
Went to it. Wherever he got spit up.
Because it says at the beginning of the last one is that he had to tell him a second time, go to Nineveh.
Yep, and he went to Nineveh. He arose and went to Nineveh.
Because I was wondering, why didn't the fish just drop him off?
Yeah, to give him a nice trip all the way around.
Maybe that was the 3 days.
Yeah.
But then it occurred to me was like, I think maybe, I don't know, God wanted to give him a second chance to actually obey him this time.
Now, all those things are great and could be. Many of the, they could add to it. What if he looked fine? We don't have to add anything extra to the story, but we can. I mean, we can look at it and go, this guy obviously probably didn't look very normal anymore, right? He probably had some bleary eyes, some craziness to him. He's not the regular preacher coming into town. But even if he was, what were the people of Nineveh like? Back here we hear, arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. Now, the times that we've heard the wickedness has come up before me is right before Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. All the big cities that are like laid waste, that's what it says beforehand. And then you have this story. Did they act like they were having a hard time changing their ways?
Well, not according to the story. They're like, oh, we're sorry.
But if
yeah,
I listened to this podcast called Hardcore History.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his recent ones, he's been going through the history of the Persians, and he starts with these people, the Assyrians, and these were like really bad people.
Really bad people.
Like conquered people and just pretty much tortured them and terrified them into submission. And so, having heard all his descriptions of what they did to these people that they conquered and how terrible they were, and then Jonah walks in and says, God's going to destroy you, and they're like, oh, okay.
Well, I think there's something to be said. For me, that's the actual answer. No matter how he looks, you got a guy, the known prophet of the Lord from wherever, from Israel, walking through your streets and just proclaiming that you're all going to die. That in itself, if you have a city like, I don't even, a horrible city. I'm trying to think of one, but where everybody is horrible and just kills everybody, and you got that guy that walked down the middle of the street going, my God's going to kill you.
Detroit.
And Detroit. My God's going to kill you. The worst neighborhood in the world. And he just walks down the street with no fear and says, my God's going to destroy all this in 40 days.
Plus, most like cities back then, had like walls or guards or something like that. It seems to me they would have seen him coming.
Yeah.
Like this one dude on this, lonely, trail leading to your city out of nowhere.
Walking through the gate and it says he preached the first day for a mile into the city, telling everybody, you're going to die, 40 days. Nobody walks into Detroit and does that. Nobody walks into a horrible inner urban neighborhood.
A day into it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing, right? There's something to be said for he did exactly what God told him to do. Let's take this example and let's turn it into the example of he'd never been swallowed by the whale. Would he have done it the same way? I don't know. Maybe. That's the kind of guy he was. But the difference between I told you to go and do this, you didn't, and this is what you had to go through, and now you're a tough guy or a crazy guy that you're just going to walk through the city and say it exactly like I said it. Whereas before he might have come in town and gone, hey, can I talk to you over in the corner and tell you about God? Maybe it might destroy the city. Right?
Yeah, God's totally going to destroy your city. Pass it on.
Because we don't want our missionaries to China or to, what was the missionary, Al's nephew, Iran? Was it Iran or Iraq? They have private church meetings to keep them from getting killed, right? Because if they ran out in the streets, they would probably be killed. Today, this is a guy going to the worst city on the planet at the time, maybe, and he just walks down the middle of the street, and everyone is converted. The entire city is converted.
Even the animals.
Even the animal, yeah. Everything. He even points out, the beasts covered by sackcloth. Everything was covered. All right?
This happens post Sodom and Gomorrah, right?
Yes.
Did Sodom and Gomorrah happen before the flood?
No. It's after the flood.
So after the flood. But then...
So people have heard about Sodom.
They would have known about Sodom and Gomorrah, though, right? Okay.
Well, if they knew anything about, the Jewish tradition and stories, they would have known the city was destroyed. But lots of cities are destroyed. It's just believing that God did it is the key point that I think you're saying. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people had heard about that because Jews would be pointing it out to everyone. My God destroyed your city. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that going on.
Nanny, nanny, boo, boo.
All right. Doug, go ahead and read it 4 for us.
This change of plans greatly upset Jonah, and he became very angry. So he complained to the Lord about it. Didn't I say before I left home that you would do this, Lord? That is why I ran away to Tarshish. I knew that you are a merciful and compassionate God, slow to get angry and filled with unfailing love. You are eager to turn back from destroying people. Just kill me now, Lord. I'd rather be dead than alive if what I predicted will not happen.
Okay, so let's stop there. That's the best part of the whole story. He hated these people. I'm gonna go there. He's very Westboro. He is. If you think it through, what kind of guy he's like, he's that. I live a pious, good life. I do what I'm supposed to do. And you just let these people off. And he wasn't surprised by it. That's the point that he says here. I knew
you would do this.
I knew you would be nice to these horrible, horrible people who've tortured and killed all these people. And that's why I didn't want to come here.
So
Self-righteous.
It was not a fear or anything like that. He genuinely didn't like the people and wanted them to die.
He was afraid that they would repent and God would have killed them.
He wanted to
He
go.
is a selfish jerk.
He wanted to go up on that cliff with a bowl of popcorn and watch the destruction.
Absolutely. Isn't that?
It's eye-opening.
It is. And it's eye-opening because we still have examples that are so easy to see. Right?
Well, I mean, this is bigotry and racism at its heart.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way.
Yeah.
But it's funny you bring up Westboro. I wonder if Westboro would actually. Okay, let's say that this homosexuals just turned away and said, "We're no longer gonna do this." Does Westboro want that to happen, or are they the kind that would prefer to watch the destruction? You know what I'm saying?
Well, after the last shooting, when they started talking about it's good that it happened and it's better that they're dead, I mean, that's what they said. What a horrible thing for Christians to say, because it would be better if they were alive and could come to know the Lord. So obviously they'd rather wish for
what the heck?
rather wish for their death than for them to come to know the truth. And in this case, that's a pretty hand-to-hand, when I get to heaven, I'm going to meet Jonah, and I just wish we could just punch him in the face. What kind of guy are you to want to know that God's going to save a city and go, I don't really want that to happen. I would rather them all die horrible deaths. And we don't know the backstory for Jonah either. He might have had friends, literally, that all died at the hands of Ninevites.
Perhaps his entire family was struck down by marauding Ninevites.
Maybe. Quite possible. We judge him kind of harshly on the other side. I just judged him harshly, said I want to punch him in the face. But the reality that the guy knew that God was merciful and sweet and wanted to do great things for these people, that he ran from it. That's pretty horrific. All right, let's finish it out.
The Lord replied, "Is it right for you to be angry about this?" Then Jonah went out to the east side of the city and made a shelter to sit under, as he waited to see what would happen to the city. And the Lord God arranged for a leafy plant to grow there, and soon it spread its broad leaves over Jonah's head, shading him from the sun. This eased his discomfort, and Jonah was very grateful for the plant. But God also arranged for a worm. The next morning at dawn, the worm ate through the stem of the plant so that it withered away. And as the sun grew hot, God arranged for a scorching east wind to blow on Jonah. The sun beat down on his head until he grew faint and wished to die. "Death is certainly better than living like this," he exclaimed. Then God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry because the plant died?" "Yes," Jonah retorted, "even angry enough to die." Then the Lord said, "You feel sorry about the plant, though you did nothing to put it there. It came quickly and died quickly, but Nineveh has more than 120,000 people living in spiritual darkness, not to mention all the animals. Shouldn't I feel sorry for such a great city?"
The Nineveh's like Derby.
Yeah. A little bit bigger than Derby. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. And if you think, I mean, I like this ending even because it's so abrupt and it's just done. It's a short, quick, sweet, to the point. God's talking to us from this story. That's why it's in the book. He's told us this stuff to show us specifically, you know what? I gave you that van for free. And now it's broke down. And you're ticked off that it's broke down. You know?
Right.
Stop. Don't be angry. Be pleasantly surprised that I'm always here helping you and not judging whatever it is in your anger. Remember, I'm here helping you all the time. And it's a great example because it is so, what's the word? You know, he knows all the hairs on our head, all those references that we have about how much he micromanages, that he knows.
He does a lot of arranging.
He arranges a lot. And he arranges a lot more than we think he does because we don't actually think about how much he arranges so that everything works out the way that it does. Every time we have the message in there be something having to do with what happened in here, he arranged that with freedom, right? He arranged for me to be studying something that coincided with something that was in there that I didn't even know, and the music that day to coincide with something, all giving us complete freedom to make the choice of what we wanted to do and what we wanted to talk about. And in this case, he built a plant in a day and ate the plant in a day to point out to us, I'm God, I can make a plant in a day, and I can get rid of the plant in a day to show someone a point. Right? It's not like it's a miracle. I'm God. It's not a miracle. I'm just God. I can micromanage this all the way down to the finest detail. And that we are stubbornly stupid just like Jonah. That's the point of my message today. We are stubbornly stupid just like Jonah.
And that's encouraging.
Let's put it on a pillow and put it on a wall. All right. Right?
Well, and even after all that, Jonah is still stubborn, and he's like, "Yes, I should be angry."
You're not getting the point. I mean, if a bunch of terrorists killed a bunch of my friends, I'm probably not going to be very happy with them and want to talk to them about the plan of salvation. Or maybe I would. Should I be? You know, that movie End of the Spear? People ate his dad, the cannibals ate his father, and then he went back and he won them to the Lord.
Spoiler alert.
I think, you know, he's way closer to us than we think he is, and we like to not think that he's close to us. Like, that's a crazy guy. No, it really isn't. It's just try to put ourselves in his shoes and the kind of jerk that he was and realize that we're much closer to being that kind of jerk too, because we don't, when things go bad, we're hating on God and we're angry and we say, I have a right to be angry. You don't have a right to be angry. You have a right to be in the fish. I took you out of the fish.
Well, and it's also just another example of basically the whole Bible where God can use anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. All right. Hopefully we got a lot out of it. I felt led to bring it back to the table because it was so close to what we were already studying. It was right in the middle of it.
Thanks for joining us again as we continue our study with James Luce and the men's ministry at Glenville Church. Feel free to join us as well on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. We'd love to have you. If you'd like to check out some other teachings here on the YouTube channel for Glenville Teachings, we have Brenda Lane, Bruce Thomas, and several other teachers. So look for some new teachings coming your way and subscribe to our channel. May the Lord bless you and keep you as you continue to grow in His grace.